your sales and customer teams have thousands of conversations, but 99% of that insight is lost. What ends up in your CRM? A short note, a few fields, the rest disappears. Meanwhile, your team is buried in manual work, information is siloed, and leaders are left guessing. That's an expensive gap, and that's where Momentum comes in. Momentum is a revenue orchestration platform. We use AI and automation to capture every customer interaction, structure the data, push it to your system of record, and trigger the next step automatically. Whether you're building AI agents yourself or using ours, Momentum is how modern go-to-market teams scale without adding complexity or headcount. From forecasting and churn risk to product feedback and coaching, every conversation becomes actionable. And companies like Ramp, Zscaler, and 1Password are saving 3 to 10 hours per person per week. No tabs to switch, no behaviors to change, just better execution wherever your team works. This is how you scale in 2025. This is how you build momentum.
Yay! Excited to be here. Hello, everyone. I am Jonathan Carford, the head of growth of Momentum. Some people call me Coach K, and I am pleased, privileged, honored, and just happy, thrilled to have my man, Brian from RevLogic here. How are you, sir?
I'm excited to be here. Thanks, John.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. So if you're here, there is a little bit of a lag, but if you don't mind putting in the comments where you're from, we'd love to see like where you're tuning in from. And as well as we want this to be a conversational webinar. So like most webinars that we do, we'd love to have live questions from the audience. I can make sure we bring up to Brian as we go through the conversation. So if you have any questions, please do so. Otherwise, just let us know where you're from. I'd love to see where you're at. And then in the meantime, I'm gonna do a quick little intro for us real fast, just to make sure we get on the same level of where we're trying to get to here. So this lovely little thing, obviously today is 12 p.m. Eastern on the 22nd. We have a lot going on in our lovely world of momentum. So super excited to have Brian here to be able to talk about the RevLogic playbook of tech stack architecture. So we just recently became partners with RevLogic. Huge fan of them and what they do. And I was talking to Brian about some things that they feel like they do really well. And one thing they do a lot with companies is this whole topic of tech stack. So just trying to make sure people in companies know how to work or use their tech stack in a way that does enablement, which I'll let Brian, I'm going to shut up for a second. If you don't mind, if people don't know who RevLogic is, how would you describe RevLogic and why is the tech stack important to you all?
Yeah, so some background on RevLogic. So we're a GTM firm. We like to think of ourselves as enablement as a service. And so really what that means is we partner with teams who have either small or non-existent enablement motions, really to just kind of come in and architecture their GTM motions. We have 8 core programs that we run clients through. So it's everything from supporting, pipeline generation to value articulation, deal process, all the way up to, creating really strong partner motions as well. So we kind of do anything and everything that touches enablement. And luckily, our clients love us. We've had a ton of success so far, and things are growing. Excited to be partners.
I love it, man. Yeah, I've been in the enablement space now for a dozen years, which is crazy to say that out loud, but a long time. And so RevLogic is one that I can tell you from being outside of RevLogic is someone that the community as a whole appreciates, respects, and has a lot of admiration for what you guys all do. So I'm just really excited to have you here to kind of dive into it. Thank you for everyone. I see the RevLogic team is here. Anyone else? Because I know we have a bunch of other people outside of, maybe the whole people of RevLogic, but there's a ton of people here. I'd love to hear where you're from. And again, any questions you have, would love to dive into with Brian. Really quick, I'm going to be selfish for a second, take like 2 minutes and talk about momentum for a second. And this whole series, we do these monthly. We have thought leaders in the space. Last month, we had Keenan from Gap Selling join us. A month before that, we had one of our customers come on and talk about what they're going through in their own AI process. We've had SBI Insights, a research firm, go through things. Like we have a really fun guest like Brian join us every single month. And the purpose is to showcase how leaders are leveraging AI or thinking about how to leverage AI to impact and make actual measurable impact, which is a lot of fun. So here, just to let you know, the problem we usually solve, we are a lot of people right now. We believe that revenue runs on conversations, and there's a lot of things that the CRM does not capture. And so Momentum is built as a platform to be able to capture some of this information so we can get this to the right people. So a lot of this leads to like poor product strategy, poor competitive gaps, poor revenue predictability. And the main crux for us is that we rely on humans to do the actual data information. But this is kind of what Momentum does. We clean every interaction from the conversations of emails, chats, calls, whatever the case might be. We analyze every single piece of it. We then extract it and then put it into your CRM records or to Slack or communicate to whoever. And then we help you understand, like, why'd you win, why'd you lose, what needs to happen next, how do we prep for the next call, and then we also get the data in so you actually understand, like, what in the world's going on for your entire company. So for us, we have all these different aspects of things we can do, from objection handling to win-loss to filling your CRM to coaching. And like one thing we do with like RevLogic is like your methodology. If you use RevLogic, we can use the Momentum as an extension of the methodology, so it can help reinforce and then fill in the gaps in data, and also tell the managers of like what's missing, which is pretty fun. And then lastly this is just some of the companies we work with currently. You can see there's a bunch of different people we work with who are really proud to be with, and it's really, really exciting to be able to have the, lack of a better word, the velocity, momentum that we're experiencing internally, which has been a lot of fun. So that's our pitch and spiel. Now let's get into you, my man, Brian, RevLogic. Let's talk about tech stack architecture real fast and kind of go from the beginning. Tell me, like, what is the normal situation when you guys do these consulting things with tech stack? Like, what are most people coming to you? Are they saying, hey, we need methodology, and by the way, we need tech stack? Like, what's the context?
Yeah, so it's kind of mixed. So a lot of the times when teams come to us, they already have an idea of, some tech they're exploring or looking to replace, or just some interesting tools that they've kind of heard about that feel like it can, solve a problem that they're already having. The biggest kind of motion for us is as we go through our engagements, one of the first steps that we'll do is a tech gap analysis call. And so really what we want to do is map out, okay, what teams are using what tools, what is the motion as far as using those tools, and then ultimately how does that data flow from everything from BDR starting an engagement all the way up to a CSM managing the relationship. And the main goal of that is to identify kind of where those gaps are in their motion and across their tech stack. And then that's really where we start understanding at which points in their tech stack is there friction, and kind of what tools would better support the teams as a whole. So we make it a point to cover it early, just because a lot of the time, teams that struggle with something like pipeline generation or, kind of articulating value or just getting deals to, get all the way through a sales cycle, a lot of the time it might just be related to the tools they're using, outside of just the methodology and the playbook that they're running.
Love it. So what do you find is the biggest things that people are missing or not? Because like in the AI world, as you well know, it's like crazy right now. There's just so many options, and it's very, I'll tell you what I think, and I'd love to get your thoughts. Like what I experience is there's always new updates from the main LLM models every freaking week, which is crazy. And then you have all these new techs that just erupt out of Series A, have like 100 million bajillion funding and Series A funding, which is crazy. So it's like incredibly fast, really overwhelming. So teams you guys work with, mid-market, enterprise teams, you can't just, plug in and unplug out tech. You have to take time to make sure it fits with the rest of your strategy. So what do people usually, how do they approach it the wrong way, and how do you help them kind of think correctly about it?
Yeah, the main thing is, people kind of look for a la carte solutions to a problem instead of really building out connected systems. So what that'll look like is, they'll find a really great tool to do something really specific, but it doesn't integrate with anything. And so reps are stuck, kind of jumping across, 5-6 tabs to get an idea of, what the full picture looks like when it comes to new opportunities or prospecting or kind of what's happening in their accounts. And so the main kind of issue there is, if all of the systems aren't connected, then that's a really big area for gaps to exist. And then you'll get things like reps stepping on each other's toes, no clear motion forward, and just kind of revenue leakage, just not having access to all of that information in one place.
I love it. Do you feel like that do you ever have people come to you and say things like, what people ask me is they say, what AI tech should I get? And I'm like, I love the question. It's not the right one to start with. How do people say that to you guys? Like, what tech should we get? And you're like, depends. Like, what do you want me to do? You ever have that happen?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think the thing is, people got really excited about AI just because, it's really smart. It can do all of these different things. But the bigger picture of kind of, how does this integrate into what we already have going, or kind of our larger GTM plan as a whole, is definitely kind of where that gap exists, because everybody's just trying to use the newest, coolest tool on the market without really identifying kind of where it could really fit in to that larger motion.
It's fascinating. So do you feel like, in your point of view, when you consult companies, are there categories of use cases you guys are like, we know for sure you're going to need this because it's just like the fundamentals, but it's good ROI or whatever experience you're trying to, you have those kind of commonalities?
Yeah, so because we have those kind of core programs, say PipeRev, for example, right? That's our program for teams who are looking to generate more pipeline. A lot of the time within PipeRev, the tool stack that we're really diagnosing or picking apart is going to be everything top of funnel. And so we're able to kind of break that down into, okay, well, what are reps using to prioritize accounts? How are you getting account research? How are you building out, kind of a value pyramid, or the 3 whys, and really understand kind of how each of those motions, or how each of those kind of points is being handled by that technology, or being, leveraging technology to solve for them. And then after that, it's okay, well, how does all of this top of funnel tech connect to, AEs who are actively working on opportunities? The opportunity exists, it's happening now. How do you get all of the conversations and data from these platforms into your CRM, into all of the tools that your AEs are using? And so we're able to break it down a bit depending on what program they're in. But a lot of the times we end up kind of mapping from start to end, just to understand kind of what that looks like. And then a lot of our clients, they'll start in one program and then kind of progress through a few more, all the way up until, we've kind of rebuilt that entire motion to understand, and make sure that everything's connected.
I love it. So when we talked before, you mentioned kind of like a framework. Do you have like, I don't know if it's a model framework. Can you walk us through what that is when you go with people? You have like I don't know what it is, like a model or like a visual or steps. Like, tell me more about it. What's the framework?
Yeah, we're actually working on a blog post to kind of post it after this. So that's going to be really exciting. Can't wait for everybody to see it. But to give you an idea of kind of what that looks like, it's really 4 branches, right? So the top branch is mapping, understanding what tools each team is using, what they integrate with, kind of what the functionality of that tool is, and then making sure that you're leveraging it to its full capabilities. The second step is really diagnosing those gaps. So, okay, if our BDRs and AEs are using one tool, does leadership have access to the data or the analytics that are coming out of those conversations? Where are reps having to jump through multiple tabs or kind of manually grab and input data in different places? And then we want to prioritize for impact as step 3, right? So if the issue is, leadership is always having to bug reps about updating the CRM, or updating notes on opportunities, just to understand kind of what pipeline looks like. We really want to understand, okay, we want to solve the biggest pain first, and then slowly kind of work backwards until all of those systems are really tightly integrated, or we're exploring tools that would better integrate with their entire system. And then the last step is just aligning and architecting what that final motion looks like. So the goal is we want to get to a place where your entire tech stack speaks to each other. Everybody understands how to leverage it. Everybody understands, each part of it. And then the goal, which luckily this is somewhere where AI can come in, is to streamline that process as much as possible. So, if that's using a tool like Momentum, for example, to, kind of pull all those strings together and really surface all of that data directly into like a Slack or a Teams, that's a lot better of a motion than trying to get everybody to go manually update all of these different tools and areas. So it's a massive time saver. But that's what our framework currently looks like.
When you are like looking at using the framework of tech and then thinking about it from a point of view of balancing what the human does versus technology, because obviously you guys deal with like human performance and, like you said before, your enablement for different companies. What do you feel like are the sweet spots for AI, and what are the sweet spots that humans do that you don't think AI can do yet, and hopefully won't do? But where do you see that balance, and how do you help people think about where do they place AI versus where they place humans?
Yeah, I think the hopefully won't do part is really tough just because of all of these advancements that
Right.
are happening
It's
so
always changing.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for AI, the best use case that we've seen so far is really automating a lot of the more manual processes around like maybe account research. A ton of reps time is just spent researching accounts, trying to prioritize them, trying to understand what's happening at them. But then you start running into these issues where teams are like, okay, we want to start using AI to do this, but now how do we get AI to like there's core data that they're looking for. It's the accounts, the 10K, so financial data. They want to understand if the account is growing, if it's not growing. They want to understand so many different aspects of prospect accounts, and that takes so much time to really break down and understand that. That's an area where we see AI coming in and really solving for. So something like in Endgame.io, where it's able to connect, you're able to upload all of your accounts, and then really have the AI kind of walk you through understanding what your priorities are, and
Yeah.
then taking the next step to actually research each account and then kind of prioritize them for you, along with that value pyramid, the 3 Ys, and really building out that foundation. I think that's a really strong area for AI to play a role in. I think where reps really need to stay in the loop or kind of take charge is really understanding more of the human side of those interactions. So, who
Right.
recently joined the company? What are their new initiatives that they're rolling out, and how is that going to impact the larger kind of motion at that company? I think the human aspect is really kind of taking the data from that research and building out a really great story for how the product fits there. I think AI has a really hard time kind of articulating that and really getting to writing something that is really attractive to someone that you're trying to book a meeting with or trying to introduce a new tool to. If
Right.
you've seen, I'm sure the AI emails that get spit out sometimes, they're not great. No, it's
Yeah.
not going to generate any new meetings. But I think that's definitely where a human needs to stay in the loop. But the more general kind of grunt manual work, definitely a strong point for AI.
Yeah. What's funny is that I think in general people don't. I think the end game is people don't care if it's written by AI or not. I think they care if it's valuable to them to actually consume or not. Because like if you just use it to be lazy and it's just the spam cannon on steroids. So it's like it's not really adding any value to ICP. It's not giving them anything they couldn't do before. So it's just waste of time. However, when you use AI intelligently, I think it'd be an extension and amplify what's working versus amplifying what doesn't work. It's the fascinating thing about AI. It's like when I teach people how to prompt, it's a reflection of them, of how they communicate, and it's the same thing with companies. As soon as you bring AI into a company, it uncovers all of the shenanigans because like the process is broken, it doesn't unveil until AI in, the data is broken, it doesn't know until AI comes in. It's like it unveils all this crap, which is a good thing because it means it's the
Yeah.
things that in order to take it to the next level, you have to do the things like document your sales process, what the heck are your exit criteria. I had a company the other day that's this massive company who has never written down their sales process. We're talking like the basic fundamental thing. They have nothing, and they're like a 75 to 100 million company. They're not small, So it's just amazing how people, and it's easy to do. They get busy in the day to day, and you forget these little things, and then AI comes in and it forces you to look at how you communicate, your process, your data, how things communicating to each other. It's just, I think it's a good thing. It's just painful to go through it.
No,
Um,
it is.
yeah.
I heard somebody once said AI is like the smartest toddler ever because it knows everything, but
Yeah.
it'll only do what you tell it to. That's why like prompting and understanding how to write good prompts is such a big skill now, because you really learn how good or bad of a communicator you are when you try to get AI to do anything.
Totally. Yeah. Um, so curious on a couple of things, and besides momentum, obviously, I'd love to know. Like, actually, let me show you one thing. I'd love to get your feedback on this because
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
find there's two worlds we're in. One world is doing what we used to do better, faster, easier, cheaper,
Mhm.
and the other world is doing something totally different. First principle based, the outcome's the same, but the way we do it is way different. So it seems to be two different worlds. And how you apply AI, because like for example, if I have a startup who has no process, no nothing, I would totally redo things because of AI
Yep.
versus old school where I have like a massive 1,000-person company. I have to kind of, you can't just, you could theoretically suck out all the guts and like redo it, but it'd be very, very painful. So you have to have this slow change management. That's what you guys do, is this change management of flowing from one to the next, So what do you feel like are the things that anyone needs to know when they're trying to amp things up with AI in that change management piece to go from current state to the future state with AI? Like, what's the pieces you guys do consistently?
I think the biggest thing to know is just really understand what your goal is with AI, which you kind of alluded to that earlier, right? Because I think the main thing is people want to leverage AI just because it is able to do so much. But if you don't have a goal necessarily, the AI will kind of chart your destiny for you. And so if you kind of go, if you're, say, a newer company that's coming to market, exactly, it's a lot easier to implement AI and kind of, use AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting because there's no existing systems there. You're kind of building everything from scratch. But if you are more of established company or established team with some established motions, the biggest thing is just breaking down your process and really understanding, okay, how can AI help with this area versus this area, top of funnel versus middle of funnel, kind of keeping value articulation versus, showing ROI and really building a strong business case with prospects. The main thing is just you need to understand what the goal for the AI is before looking at implementing it. And then when you go to implement it, there's so many providers now that are starting to, even if it's a company that, kind of started doing one thing, like a Gong, for example. Now they have Gong Engage. Originally, Gong was solving for meeting recordings, keeping track of everything. And now they're really kind of looking more into this outbound motion and solving for a lot more pain points or a lot more use cases. And so as technology progresses, understanding what you're solving for makes it so much easier to identify the kind of best tools for you, because you can start scaffolding kind of a list of requirements for what you need. So, we need these integrations, we need this workflow, and really just starting there.
Yep. Okay, you've inspired me. I got to show a couple of visuals. All right, I'm not playing. I'm gonna go over this now. So there is, I released with Momentum, what's called the 7-step process, this is very, very, very high level of just like, here's the 7 steps. So for us, I always tell people to start with your target or your initiatives, and then go down to the processes or pain points. Get the data ready, match AI to the needs you have, get the readiness of your team ready, implement in phases, and then measure impact. And I'm showing this because I want to show you a couple of things. So that's number one. Is this is how we define AI transformation. That's just me personally kind of applying what I've done with other companies. And then this is what we call the OR matrix. This is assuming that someone has an established company. Like, these are the people who want to go better, faster, easier, cheaper. If I had a brand new company, I'd use a different model. But for people who have existing companies, this is how I think about it, is like saying, okay, low hanging, easy fruit to accomplish is time savings, just to get, optimization of time. Then you can go into amplification, then to reinvention. So to give you an example, with optimize, it's like saying like auto generate summaries and CRM logging and lead account matching automation and onboarding assistant marketing. Like, all this stuff is like, to me, like the lowest hanging fruit, basic stuff. Then you have amplify, which is kind of the next level. Like, for example, AI powered coaching agent that identifies deal risks and skill gaps proactively for you, which is pretty cool. Or like, for example, RevOps, where you have like a pipeline inspection agent that literally goes through the entire pipeline and builds out all the assumptions for you for forecasting, which is, again, another crazy world we're going into. And then lastly is like reinvention, where you totally rethink how everything's done from the ground up, and thinking about like, how can we do the outcome looking for, first principle based, but using a different path, which is kind of a fun way to think about it. And then to your point before, and I'm going to go here real fast because I think it's important. I did this crazy exercise where I went through the main 7 stages that, oh, sorry, I don't see this one. Hang on a second. Sorry about this. Let me share my other screen. I had a friend of mine who asked me, like, what are all the processes going on that we need to be aware of for AI? So I did this crazy exercise where I broke down the 7 stages that most companies have in SaaS, and then here's just an example of like workflow and key activities in each one that you can like literally break this down. Let me go to right here, for example. Like, here's the things that happen in discovery. Here's both the human things to do, the task, and then there's the data points. This is a lot of stuff for just discovery. And this can change based on your methodology. And then you have all this deep dive process breakdown for memory dump, follow-up emails, CRM entry, internal notifications. Like, when I went through this, I was amazed of how much time it takes when we're asking sales reps to do this. I was like, no wonder they don't get anything done, because it's just this process alone is like insane, you know? But
Yeah.
when you start to look at this and you see, like, I'm curious your thoughts using this as an example, because you just mentioned like map out your processes. This is one example of doing that. But
Hmm.
there are things in here that when you look at like the 1 to 2 hours here and 1 to 3 hours here, that if you automate this alone is giving you extra revenue generating activity time. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So anyways, I just want to show that, give context. So I'm curious, number one, what are your thoughts on this? Do you guys kind of walk people through a process like this, or how do you think about it usually?
Yeah, it's a similar process. We really just break down and understand kind of what each of those areas look like. A big thing
Right.
that we do is interview the teams. So we're going to want to
Yeah.
talk to the people actually doing the process, because I think there's also sometimes a disconnect between, how long leaders think something takes versus how long it it
All the time.
actually takes,
Yeah, yeah.
And so that is a big kind of area of focus, because at the end of the day, leaders really care about results, reps care about quota, and the whole time
Yep.
it's trying to make
Yep.
those two worlds understand each other is a lot easier said than done. And so for reps, I think that's part of the big reason why so many of the AI companies that came out were mainly focused around that kind of top of funnel motion,
Right.
right? They're
Right.
trying to solve for how much time reps are spending top of funnel and kind of automating so much of that. But then when you talk to reps, a lot of the times people are using completely different tools. People aren't really communicating across, what's working, what's not working. And there's just these really big blind spots around kind of what's happening within the team and within, these different accounts and opportunities. So
Right.
mapping that process out is a really, really important step of our engagements, just so we are coming into it with a full understanding of how those teams are set up today and kind of how everything is moving throughout the sales process.
How often is someone, when you say, hey, let's map it out, they say, we got it done? Does that ever happen?
It takes a while.
Yeah. But
It's,
does anyone ever say, hey, we're done with that, let's move on? Does anyone say, like, we did that already, here's the map? Or are you always building that out with someone?
we try to build it out with everybody just to
Yeah.
make sure that we have a solid starting point, because the thing is, you can ask like a leader kind of what that process looks like, and they'll map out the ideal way that the process should look.
Right.
But when you talk to a rep or an AE and really start understanding kind of what their
The
process
real
looks
way.
like, exactly, yeah, it might, hopefully not, but a lot of the times it's gonna look different than kind of the ideal setup that leadership thinks is in place.
Yeah. I think this is where a lot of people miss, is because this is what one of our customers, Kyle Norton, would say is the unsexy work. This is not fun. It's not like anyone wants to post on LinkedIn saying, hey, we just spent 8 hours mapping out our, like, no one wants to say that. It's not very fun.
Yep.
But it's in that unsexiness and the hard work that then you can amplify. Because to me, I always tell people when they do the process you're talking about, it's almost like you're pulling back a rubber band and you feel like you're going backwards because you're kind of hard. But as soon as you get the process out and you map, you let go, you're like, you just accelerate so fast. It's just in the pulling back motion. You're like, are we going anywhere? Is this doing anything? What are we doing with our lives? It's like, just give me the button of AI and give me more pipeline. That's what I'm looking for,
No,
So,
exactly. That's actually, I think, a big reason why so many teams will come to us is they don't want to do that, or they don't really have a system in place to do that internally.
right.
A lot of them, it's kind of, similar to Momentum. It's really fast growing shops, really leading startups.
Right.
And then some of them, they just have larger initiatives in place. One of our clients, Netscope, we worked with them kind of preparing for this IPO they did in September. And when you have like so many moving pieces at one time, it's like, okay,
Right.
who can we bring in, or how can we best kind of understand if we have the best system in place today? And so a lot of the times it's just kind of positioning them or getting them to a place where they're able to make these large changes or large kind of updates to their motions in preparation for, large growth, bringing in new team members, and just kind of mapping out, what's needed, what's already in place, and all of that. But yeah, it's not an easy process. So, it's a pain that luckily we can solve for, which I think
love
is
it.
like bread and butter.
Yeah, I love it. So anyone watching, including the RevLogic team, but anyone watching, if you have any questions, please bring it in the chat. I'll bring them up as we go through the discussion. We'd love to get Brian's thoughts on whatever you might be thinking. And welcome, everyone. I just want to make sure I forgot to say hi from Nashville, NC, Florida, Colorado, Michigan, NG? What's NG? Outbox. Do you know what NG is? What's NG? New. What's NG stand for? Tell me, T. You got to tell me what NG stands for. I don't know what that stands for. But yeah, any questions? Please let us know. I have a question for you, Brian. If you don't mind, without naming any names, and just keep your customers anonymous. But can you give us an example of like a before and after? Like, what did you do before? What were either the tech or the recommendations you made, and then what was the after results with either productivity time or, any impact on sales metrics?
Yeah. I think keeping them anonymous. I think the biggest example would probably be, I'd say we had a client in the AI space who is a pretty big kind of AI provider now. They have, a killer model, but they're kind of joining I'd say the enterprise offering space a little bit, kind of later in the game after a lot of larger companies have, kind of had time in the market. And so really what we're trying to come in and help them solve for is building out a really strong enterprise selling motion, which wasn't in place before. And really how we're helping there is, and I'd say it was a little bit easier because it's a lot more of kind of green space. The company has some sister companies who already had kind of pre-built systems for how they're kind of tackling sales motions, marketing motions, and things like that. But we were able to come in and really start building that kind of enterprise motion for them. So, what their top of funnel should look like, kind of how they should be managing the deal process and kind of the sales process, and then ultimately how to just keep track of everything in one place and make it really easy for the reps to kind of communicate what's happening across the accounts. But in that case, a lot of it is we lead with the methodology first, creating the playbooks, creating kind of the motion there. And then the tech support or the tech stack is coming into kind of help really cement the methodology that we're putting into the account.
Cool. I love it. So with the sales metrics, if you can give an example, do you have an idea? Like, have you had, has there been enough time to get the metrics from it? Like to get the results?
Not yet. I can speak to kind of some other metrics,
Sure.
but a lot of the metrics that I have are more based around kind of the methodology and the actual programs themselves. So for us, really how we kind of map out RevLogic's impact is turning these little dials, right? So everything from sales process to pipeline generation to win rate to sales cycle to ramp time is really kind of how we break everything down. So we're increasing average deal sizes by about 3%, ramp time for reps by reducing it by a month, increasing win rate overall by 5%, sales cycle, shortening it by a month, and then pipe gen, we're increasing it by about 2 opportunities or 2 net new opportunities more than kind of what the previous cycle or the previous motion was doing. And so in total, if we have a team that's kind of already at say 20,000 ASP with 45 deals kind of piped per quarter, we're able to increase that overall capacity we're able to increase overall capacity up to about like 60 million. So for different teams, it changes, of course, but really the main idea is just turning each of those little dials and then bringing tech in to reinforce that.
Love it. What do you feel like is unique with, and this is, by the way, I did not plan these questions. I'm just asking because I just am a curious person. What are the unique parts of RevLogic's methodology that you feel like really get amplified well when AI is functioning correctly? What is that magic sauce, do you feel like?
When AI is amplified well, I think I'll start with what makes us really stand out and then kind of how we use AI to bolster that. So really, the main reason why folks like to come to us is because we have folks, we're not just, a thought shop, right? Like a thought leadership shop where we're just going to give you the messaging and kind of, some ideas of what you should do. But we actually work kind of integrated with your team to build out these new processes and also test them out for you so that we're able to report back like real results and ROI that the team is seeing after working with us. So the background of our team, everybody comes from a really strong tech background. So we've got folks from Zscaler, App Dynamics, Wiz, Vercel, kind of every little bubble around the tech ecosystem. And really everybody's coming in, and the way that we kind of decide who's going on what engagements is just based on client need and then expertise and background. And then the way that we use AI to come over the top of that and really support clients is understanding what the big picture goal is, and then looking for areas where either the tool that they're using is not really AI enabled, where they're still doing a lot of that manual grunt work, and finding tools to come in and implement there, or really showing the team. A lot of teams are already kind of leveraging their own LLM tools or different LLM providers and things like that, but really understanding, okay, is there a more connected way for the team to use these tools? Something like Perplexity, for example, has the Spaces option where you're able to build these.
Yeah, I love the Spaces. That's awesome. Yeah,
Spaces are killer. No, we love Spaces. Yeah. No, but just having that ability to go into a space and customize it to, here is our kind of value pyramid. Here's everything about the company and kind of what we do, right? And then going out and leveraging a space to do maybe some research for the thing is, it goes for so much. So it can be everything from, you're going to an event, what companies are joining, based on, kind of your fit in the marketplace and those companies, really understanding, hey, is there an opportunity where we are already solving a pain point or a gap for some of these other teams that are attending? Like really just getting creative and leveraging AI in ways that teams just don't know is possible yet.
Yeah. What's funny is that I find that a lot, that people use like a ChatGPT, the basics, maybe some custom GPTs, but besides that, they don't. A lot of, like for Spaces, like most people probably didn't even know that was a thing. And I'm like, I love Spaces, or like GPT tasks, or all these cool things you can do that people just don't know. Partly because there's just so much volume that people just can't keep up. But it's not their fault. It's just so much stuff going on. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, no, I think that's exactly it. I think folks just don't know what's out there and what is possible with a lot of these tools. And then they don't all have the same use case. Some tools are better for research, like something like a Perplexity, whereas some tools are going to be better for, coding assistants, or they're just built with a different purpose in mind. But I think a lot of folks who aren't as maybe nerdy or deep in the space as you and I really struggle to really identify kind of, is this the best tool for what I'm looking to do?
Totally. Yeah. I find that, people feel, we just did this report last 6 months. We took all the data from sales calls, not from customer calls, but from sales calls, from people just hearing like the ICP of like what people are going through. And it's fascinating to see like a lot of people are leveraging AI from like prompting ChatGPT or something basic, but operationally, there's not a lot of operational depth with AI. It's mostly like we threw a Copilot license at you and that's our AI adoption, which is fascinating. And it'll just be interesting to see how it progresses as we shift over this next like year, So, Brian, I hope you don't mind. Praveen asked a question. I know you asked this a while ago, Praveen, so forgive me for getting here. But you see the question, okay?
Yep.
See that right? Yeah.
All right, great talk. I would love to understand if we already have a SaaS product and have to work on demand generation.
Yeah. So I think that means, Praveen, they have one, I think. Is that what you got? You understand the question, hopefully?
Yeah, I'm a little, I'd like to ask, when you say already has a SaaS product, are you a SaaS product looking to get better at demand generation, or do you have a product that you bought and you're looking to leverage it for more demand generation?
The answer is yes. Yeah. That one. They have a SaaS product. They want to do more demand generation. So what would you do that with companies?
I mean, we talk with companies, even if they're not clients, just to kind of better understand what they're building and how we can help there. If it's a SaaS product, I think for demand generation, it's a bigger conversation, right? So let's break it down. If the SaaS product is solving a very specific pain for a specific industry, I think the biggest thing first is to map out your TAM, so who you're targeting, your ICPs, So, kind of what backgrounds or titles you need to be targeting. And then if you're looking at leveraging a tool, then really understanding, one, what platforms are you looking to leverage with that tool? So if you want to start doing outbound, for example, and you're going to need things like emails, phone numbers, and some additional data to start kind of building those prospect lists out, then you're going to want to look at something which is something that's not AI, that's not an AI tool, and then something that is leveraging AI to kind of build that out. So something like a sales nav would be great to build those lead lists out, just because there's so much information and data from LinkedIn to really build out and target those specific accounts. And then coming on top of it with something like a Lead IQ or a Zoom Info or a tool like that to go ahead and start building the larger prospect list. Now, if you have a tool, a CRM like a Salesforce or a HubSpot, you're going to want to make sure that those tools integrate with your CRM so that you're not manually pulling lead lists from one platform into the other. But I think the best starting place would be really building out kind of that GTM motion and understanding what ICPs you want to target, what industries you want to target, and then start identifying tools for each one of those steps.
Yeah, I think too that there's some core principles you gotta think about as well, which I know you alluded to, which is like demand generation. To me, I'll talk from my lens as a marketer. I'm of the opinion, and I'm inspired by brands by like Apple and Nike and all these other major humongous brands for good reason. But if marketing is done well, if demand generation is done well, it makes the whole rest of the process easier because you're targeting the right people, to your point. You know their pains and problems really well, and it makes the sales process and everything else a lot easier. Because, like, for example, you could be a mediocre salesperson and make a good living being an Apple salesperson because it's such a strong brand, So I think part of this understanding, like, how well do you know your ICP and your flow, and what do you uniquely bring to the market, and then on top of that, this is just my own soapbox for a second, but it's also like, how do you create value to the marketplace? So even if they don't buy from you, you create value, so that you become a trusted voice in the space, and that they know you can trust you for different things in your topic. You know what I mean? It's like, that's always my goal with our ICP with Momentum, is like, I want to provide things that are valuable enough that people would pay for them, but I'm giving it for free because they can trust us as a brand. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of layers around this, but to your point, it's like, it really comes down to how well do you know your market and the people you're talking to, the pains they're going through, which is fascinating because that directly goes to methodology and sales, because that's all you do is connect the dots between those two things. Do you find that happens a lot, to where you kind of sort of consult marketing because you focus so much on the value prop and then that gets communicated? Like, do you find that happening a lot?
It happens. I think the biggest thing is folks just don't understand how integrated those two things are. They kind of see them as completely disjointed, right? But there, so much of the time, the way, especially if you're getting inbound leads, all of those leads, a lot of the time, are getting influenced by what marketing and demand gen is putting out. So how they understand your brand, how they see your brand, what problems they think you solve. Not a lot of folks are just going to go do a deep dive on your website to really understand, kind of what you do. They're looking for, either word of mouth, or they've seen a piece of content, kind of like you said, right? And so if you're giving away content for free, you're giving away a lot of thought leadership for free, and you're really kind of building a brand around the problem and pain that you solve for. It's kind of a no-brainer when somebody's thinking, okay, we need to solve for that, to go with you. Even for us, we have a ton of clients where maybe we help them with engagement, or they are familiar with another client that we've already done an engagement with, and it's either word of mouth, or they had such a good experience kind of rebuilding their motion at their last company that, they're calling us to set that kind of same motion up at the new company. It's really about getting people to understand what you're all about and then building that presence.
I'm going to shift gears because you triggered a thought for me real quick. With the change happening in AI and kind of all the different things you're thinking about, how do you help people plan for the future? Like, not necessarily with like what AI tech to buy, but more of like saying, as an example, you could theoretically right now, depending on what you wanted to do, you can make your first 2 or 3 stages of a sales process automated with AI on some level with like 4 or 5 different tech, which means that the human wouldn't get to someone until stage 4, which means that the skills and things needed at stage 4 with a human are different than they would have been before if they started from stage 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I'm not saying people should do that. I'm just saying like that's an example of what could theoretically happen very, very quickly. You know, so how do you help people know like where to think about setting the foundation now and then preparing for the future of whatever might change?
Yeah, I think it's really about the idea of building a strong foundation first, and then future proofing the rest of your stack, right? Like and this comes from my experience at Vercel and more of the composable space, right? There's this concept in web infrastructure where you have monolithic architecture and then composable architecture. And the pros of both are if you have a monolith, so you have all of these interconnected systems, but they're really unflexible, right?
Mm-hmm.
The issue becomes, okay, well, if you want to change anything or if you want to update something, leverage a new piece of technology, maybe something new came out that can support newer areas of your sales process, it's really painful to change anything when everything is built on this just kind of one really rigid foundation, where if you have something that's more composable, where you're able to interchange different pieces of technology, you're able to test things quickly, you're able to build out your roadmap for your process moving forward based on what's already happening in your tech stack. It makes it so much easier to kind of future proof the stack as a whole. So that's how we like to think about it is, one, what is your foundation? What is not changing anytime soon? A lot of the time, that's going to be maybe some tools, and we're seeing it change now, but teams will be like really stuck on like one CRM because it does all these things and it's plugged into all of these things. But then they're looking to build out the rest of the stack that's on top of that, so we can all communicate effectively. And so that's where you want to test things quickly. You want to understand, okay, well, what's on the roadmap for the tools I'm already using? Like, for example, and I know we talked a little bit about this before we hopped on, but the new updates that your team rolled out at Momentum, where you're able to kind of go back and auto update all of these, different areas within Salesforce. It's a free plug, but you're able to update all of these
I'll
areas.
Take free plugs, Brian. I don't mind. I like the plugs.
Yeah, no, but like tools like that, right? If you had a customer that understood, hey, this is on your roadmap or this is a new feature you released, it's now solving for pains that they can now go and construct the rest of their tech stack around that, understanding that, hey, Momentum's going to help us solve for this. So I think a lot of the time the issue is the tech stacks that teams are using, it's either brought in from somebody who, had an experience using it in the past, or there's already, kind of an understanding or familiarity with it. But really, I think what sets us apart and why so many teams look at us as a trusted advisor when it comes to what tech they should be exploring and kind of how they build out their stack as a whole is we are looking for those disruptors in the spaces. The companies that are looking to take some market share away from Salesforce, maybe they're becoming a lot more, kind of AI native tools and flexibility there, even for pipe gen, account research, really anything across the GTM motion. I think there's a lot of exciting tech out there kind of trying to solve existing pain points better. And I think that's what teams need to keep top of mind is just, do we even understand what our tech stack and the partners that we have are looking to do moving forward?
Yeah, it's I think the good news is that everyone's in the same place trying to figure this out as go, because like I think there's some teams who are executing really, really well right now, but they're going to be in the same boat as everyone else is when the next change happens in 2 months. You're like, okay, now we got to it's the same thing. So it's exciting, and it's also like, I hope people feel validated that it is intense, and it's okay if you don't got to figure it out yet, which is why you guys exist. You can help with this kind of stuff, which is good.
Exactly.
I had another question for you. Oh, I'm totally going to use, by the way, the composable architecture thing. Like, I've never heard that terminology. I'm totally using it. Just, I'm gonna credit you. I'm like, Brian said this. I'm gonna totally use it.
No.
So do you feel like that's the problem though with like the incumbent type tech stack? Because that's essentially, you're talking AI native versus not native. It's like you have like a Salesforce with the infrastructure that's not composable. It's like it is what it is versus more of a building block type function. Like, that's essentially the main issue with bigger incumbents bolting on AI versus having the foundation of AI, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. And even the way that we can explain the value of it, is very, very similar to the web infrastructure space. The whole reason of why you'd want a composable stack versus a monolith is when something breaks in a monolith, you're stuck. It is, it's
Right.
really painful. You've got to fix it, and everything kind of stops until you fix it. Whereas when you have a composable stack, and really the reason why it is so great to have one is everything's, in this case, AI native. Everything talks to each other. Everything integrates with each other. You have real-time visibility versus, I think teams are really just used to the more manual, laggy process. So it's not
Right.
it's not so much a, hey, this is the best option for us. It's just, this is what we're used to, which
Yeah.
I think is going to be, I think that's going to be such a problem for teams kind of as we move more and more into this AI future, is they're going to realize the tools that they've been using all this time just don't fit what they're trying to do. And meanwhile, you have all of these leading companies trying out all of these new AI native tools. They have all of this real time visibility, all these unified workflows. Nobody's chasing each other down for updates or, account transitions or anything like that. There's so much that already happens in a sales process that if you're able to automate the majority of it, you literally have a massive leg up on the rest of your competitors, just because you're able to lead rather than just react to what's happening in your GTM motion.
Yeah, I love that. I'd put in the comments just so everyone knows your link. So when I send this out to everyone, because we have a lot of people who watch the replays of this afterwards. They register and then watch the replays. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm making sure everyone hearing me can hear that I will be sending this out via email. I'll send your LinkedIn if you're okay with that, and then
Awesome.
obviously the RevLogic website, and then there I also included our prompt library. It's free, so because you're here, we just want to tell you thank you. There's 200 plus prompts that I personally wrote for random go-to-market stuff. So they're not your usual paragraph prompts. They're meaty suckers. So if you haven't used those yet, please do. And then, yeah, I just want to I'm curious, any last thoughts you want to do before the last 3 minutes or so? Anything that you want to end with? I didn't ask you.
Um, no, I think we covered a lot. I think the biggest thing is just, I really hope teams, and especially kind of these newer leaders, kind of coming up in the space and building these processes out. I really hope that they're starting from an AI native place rather than just what they're familiar with. I think starting to really understand that the vendors you pick are just as important as the motions and kind of the process you have in place. And really
Yep.
understanding, building that out and having a strong enablement engine and telling your reps, kind of what you expect and then the way to get there is, I think it's going to become more and more of a focus as we move into the future. I think a lot of the more old, mundane kind of processes that we were used to are out of the window.
I'm curious. One last question, because you
Mhm.
guys are I kind of know the answer to my question, but how in this world of changing the guard, or I don't feel that's the right word to call it. And there's people talking about, should it be AI ops? Should it be GTM engineering? Should it be Rev ops? Should it be whatever?
Mhm.
Tell me why it should be enablement, because I think it should be enablement. But tell me why you think.
I think enablement, I think people have a really hard time understanding kind of what enablement really means, right?
Right?
And
Yes.
so, a lot of the time, folks just think, oh, it's kind of, the people who tell us where everything is and, an idea of like what we should do. But no, it's so much more than that. Enablement really it architects the rest of the GTM motion, and it really builds a strong engine or system, however you want to describe it. It is the core of any successful sales team, because if you don't have a strong enablement engine, it gets so many things get disjointed. Reps are kind of living in the wild west where they're just doing whatever they need to hit quota. Everybody's
Right.
confused. And then a lot of the times when ultimately, like when we work with teams, it's really unbundling all of the you know un let's say not so great processes in place, and then building a really,
Yeah.
really kind of great engine for that. So no, I
Yes.
think enablement still leads. You need a really strong enablement engine to do anything GTM wise.
Yeah. I totally 100%, 3000% agree. Like I've been preaching this for 3 years, that I think that enablement should be at the core of the change, because
Mhm.
um, for all the reasons you just said. So I can't say it better than you did. So I just want to tell you thank you from the enablement space. I just want to tell you thank you. And Bobby, yes, I agree. The architects of sales is exactly how enablement should be looking at from any point of view. So everyone, thank you so much for joining. Love and appreciate your attendance. And Brian, huge kudos to you. I'll be sending you the recording. You can do it if you want through with the recording. But everyone else, I'll be sending you the recording as well as the assets we shared today. And I just want to tell you and the RevLogic team, we love being partners and just appreciate you guys so much. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thanks you all. And we'll see you on the next time.